it do, y'all? It's your girl, Nail, and we are here with the Oye Dimelo Cinema Club. This evening, we are here with our lovely panel of hosts, Michaela, JP, Steve Dev, Mr. Raymond Arturo, El Dandino, and Sir Jason. This evening, we are reviewing the film The Devil Wears Prada, chosen by yours truly. Now, before I get into the array of topics I want to discuss, I would love to know if this was the first time you've seen this movie. Did you see this movie, and what are your first impressions? Can we first begin with Mr. Ray?
This is not my first time watching it. I remember watching it the first time. I was a closeted mess. So I was like, this movie. And then watched it after I came out and I was like, oh my God, this movie. And I was just like obsessed and watched it like 5 more times. And a lot of people, whether you're into fashion or not, whether you're into what this movie entails or not, I feel like a lot of people respect it. And so a lot of writer friends and I have watched this movie countless times because we think it's really, really good. So first impressions, which is like, it continues to hold up.
Agreed. I agree. What about you, Michaela?
This is not my first time seeing this. I'm also I'm familiar with the first book of the series. It's one of those things where I think I enjoyed it a lot more when I was younger. This time there was a couple things that kind of raised my eyebrows, but we'll get into that later.
JP, what about you?
Well, it was crazy because this is not my first time watching the movie either. This was one of those films that my mom and my sister used to watch all the time, and while revisiting it, I was really surprised that there was a lot more sexual tension and just all around aggressiveness. But then I realized, oh wait, I'm not watching The Devil Wears Prada. I'm watching the adult film The Devil Wears Nada. But then once I finally got back, so what I learned is I have to watch these movies with Michaela first, because this is the 3rd time that I messed up.
Oh man.
I mean, it's weird because it's I don't know, it's a cute movie.
Which one, The Devil Wears Nada or this one?
I would describe Nada as cute, but it's cutesy. For some reason, I got some hard Disney Channel vibes off of this film, which isn't a good thing, but that's just me. That's me personally. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but there's so many parts in the movie where I thought I remembered it wrong, or I thought it was gonna go in a certain direction, and there's some stuff that I don't think has necessarily aged that well. So, but I'm sure we're gonna talk about it. So my initial thought, it's definitely not as bad as I remembered it, but it's okay.
All right, let's go with the double man in this feature too. Jason, what are your thoughts about this film?
Well, this ain't my first rodeo. I have seen this movie before in theaters, mind you. What I didn't realize is this movie is 15, 16 years old. Holy crap, y'all. I can't even believe this is 15 years old. Honestly, I thought this movie, before actually looking it up online, I thought this was 2012 or something. So the movie's interesting. I still like it. I liked it the first time. I liked it this time. What tipped me off when I was watching it is that there's a lot of T-Mobile sidekick in this movie. I'm like, oh, she's got a sidekick. This must be old, man. This is crazy. But yeah, I feel like the movie holds up pretty well under the circumstances. Dino mentioned that it was a PG-13 film. It didn't feel like that the first time I watched it. I suppose it feels like that this time watching it. I had never really considered it before, but given that Anne Hathaway's in
You were
it,
watching The Devil Wears Nada.
Oh boy.
that one's still in my queue. I'm gonna get to it though, I promise. What I did notice is that because Anne Hathaway is in the movie, you probably have to produce it at least 15 years ago for a younger audience still, because she was like Princess Diaries, or what was the movie that she was in? Princess Diaries. But like her fan base was still probably relatively young when this came out, and if you want to make this movie successful, you got to bring in the star's fan base. And also, I didn't read the book, so I don't really know how much adult themes are even in this thing to begin with. But in my opinion, holds up pretty well from the first viewing. Tons of great performances. I liked it.
Dino.
Well, first time watcher. I did
That's what
not.
I wanted to hear.
Huh?
I said that's what I wanted to hear. Just kidding.
And I couldn't. I don't know. I don't think it's aged well. I didn't know Raymond back in the day, but it definitely hasn't aged as well as Raymond has aged. So that's my review.
Fine wine. Fine.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I get it. It just seemed like it was a script that I've seen a bunch, and I just maybe if I would have watched it 15 years ago, I would have liked it more. And I know of fashion because I was in costume construction and stuff, but it just didn't move me. There were some good things, but and hey, I've had a crush on all of those actresses at one point or another. So I don't like them being all mean and stuff. It just it's very upsetting. So that's what hurt me the most, seeing them do crazy bad shit stuff that would not approve. But
Emily was
anyway.
too blunt in this movie.
Too what? I missed it.
I said Emily was too blunt in this movie.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay.
But not as much as Snoop Dogg then.
He's out there too. Steve, what about you?
So initial thoughts, first impressions of the movie. I was actually dreading watching this movie, but at the same time, I've been so freaking busy. So the first time that this is the first time I'm watching this movie, by the way. So the initial time that I was watching the movie, I wasn't paying too much attention, I guess, to the dialogue. But little by little, like it was giving me all these, because I'm also seeing it, I'm older. I've been through some of my life and stuff. And
Okay, abuelo.
Right.
I'm seeing it with these eyes that is just like, oh, that's totally LA. Like I remember even being in an agency that literally operated that way. That it was like, yeah, there's people that they don't really give too much of a fuck about you. But then when the celebrity person comes, it's like, oh, we got to make sure everything is ready and all this and all this. So it was just giving me a lot of those vibes. And I was just like, oh, for sure. I know when Naomi picked this up, because she feels identified here with this character. And yeah, and I mean, the moment I saw the dude from Entourage like being here, that's what gave me the vibes. Oh, this is old. This gotta be like 2002, for sure. When was this guy like famous? It's just like
I kind of said the same thing.
yeah, like true. Like the moment he popped on screen, I'm like, oh, this is old. Like because Meryl Streep looks great. You cannot tell. Like,
Yeah.
when is it? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anne Hathaway, to me, she looks almost the same in every film. And then when you see the entourage dude, you're like, oh, this is old. This is old because this guy definitely fell off a cliff or something. Like we don't know what's up with his life. So yeah, those are my my first impressions.
Well, I will share my piece of the pie and why I picked this film. Initially, I saw this film when I was like young, but I wasn't a fan of it until it hit retail. And I was in that position Andy was in, and I was clowned by the gays. I love the gays. They were very helpful for me. So I learned to appreciate fashion in a different way. And not only that, the costume designer, Patricia Fields, she's been in other, bigger things. She's done like Sex and the City and what other one? Emily in Paris. So you can definitely see her work in this film. And this film was actually like a controversial when it won an Academy Award for like best costume design, because there was like, this is not even costume, this is contemporary clothing from that time. So I really feel that this movie and like Beacons is a beacon of light and how important fashion is and all these important stuff about how it's, many jobs involved and all that beautiful stuff. So with further ado, the characters, we were discussing Meryl Streep and how she was the mean one. And that's because it's based off the movie from this girl's experience. Off a book from this girl's experience being in this environment. And basically, I'm not a...
Who are you?
My name is Andy Sachs. I recently graduated from Northwestern University.
And what are you doing here?
You don't.
Nominations.
So, I'm not familiar with the book. She's a journalist. She just graduated of college or whatever. But from what I know is that she was an assistant to Anna Wintour, which was this high-end fashion editor from, I believe, Vogue. So basically, I love how this movie highlights the industry and all that stuff. The character, Meryl Streep, is phenomenal. I can't further ado, can't share much of how much she is important in this film. But yeah, like, what are your thoughts with Meryl Streep's character, you guys? Like, besides her being a bitch and stuff.
I absolutely love her take as Glenn Close as Cruella DeVille. So I'm just joshing. I'm just effing. No, Meryl's great.
All night, folks.
No.
If I'm not mistaken, like before Meryl Streep did this role, the like quintessential like evil boss was always like throwing shit, yelling at the top of their lungs, like super vicious. And I have seen a lot of like interviews with a lot of the actors in this film, and one of the many was I think it was from Anne Hathaway's perspective. She said when they did the first table read with Meryl Streep, they all had kind of, as they're reading the script on their own, they all had kind of their own idea of how things were going to play out. So they're reading the script and like having Meryl's character like yell at her, and so she's responding. But Meryl didn't do any of that. Meryl actually whispered because she felt the power of having people have to listen up to what she was saying was more powerful than having to always yell at the time and be here. And so Anne Hathaway saw that in real time in the read-through, and she noticed that the whole room, when Meryl would do her lines, they would like get extra quiet and lean into whatever Meryl was saying. And so I think like that was huge, because I think any other actor at that time would probably.
Let me just say something. I legit was like, what is she saying? Like, because I was watching it in my computer, so I had the volume all the way up, and I can't hear. Like, I had to lean into the computer and listen.
That's why I love captions.
Well, and like on top of that, her character in the book is actually British, and the only reason why they decided to switch the assistant and her is because Meryl was like, no, I don't want this to be close to Anna Wintour. I don't want everyone to think that's who I'm being. Like, she made the executive choice to be like, no, this is my character. So on top of everything else.
On top of that, I was reading that not that long ago, Emily Blunt was interviewing about this film and about watching Meryl get into character. And she says everybody thinks Meryl is doing an Anna Wintour impression, when in fact, she's doing two Hollywood executives that she refused to name who they were as her inspiration for the character.
That's amazing. I love that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's dope.
I bet I met one of them.
You met one of them?
Harvey
No.
Weinstein.
Bro, I was in this agency, right? That they're mainly known just to not throw, like, their name is very easy to guess, but they're a big agency for models primarily, right? And these agencies, they're like built almost like multi-level marketing. Like, you know, there's someone at the top, but then there's people like kind of like a hierarchy type of thing. And I remember like an agent like saw my stuff and they were like, oh yeah, we want you in or whatever. And then we went to different I had to meet like different agents or whatever. And then I waited for this one agent that she was like with Megan Good and like a bunch of the A-list celebrities. And then when she saw me, bro, she like literally stared me down, kind of like this scene. I gotta prop the scene because literally this same thing happened to me.
That's all. It's just the cavalier disregard.
Bro, the same thing. She did that, and she was like, "Get the hell out of my way! Like, who are you? Like, you gonna be here? No."
So you're saying she was like, "What are those?"
Well, one of the favorite things about this film that I like is the image of the photo montages that transition her from like that character development that Andy goes through. I like the transition. It's just like super, is it called a long shot or a short shot? I don't know what it's called, but I think it's beautiful. It's like beautifully well done. And I also saw this movie in the movie theater, and I was impressed in how beautiful it was made. Did anyone see those montages I'm talking about? Photo montages?
Yeah, like that one shot where she's like going through all the different outfits and like it's edited so smoothly that
Yes.
if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't be able to be like, oh, she's not wearing the Jimmy Choos. Now it's Wang.
Are you talking about the montages like where she's walking down the street and it's like the same shot sort of over but in different outfits?
Yes.
The Vogue montage.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's a few of those, right? There's also one with the Meryl Streep coming to work every day and she's dropping her coat off with her and stuff like that, and it's always a different coat and outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
These are the montages you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, those were dope, man. Me and Dina were talking about that when we were watching it, and I was like, I do not envy production for having to shoot this. Like, Dina said, how long do you think that took to shoot? And I'm like, just her dropping that coat and having to do makeup and hair for everybody for all those little drops, that was probably 2 days to shoot that.
May I interrupt real quick?
No.
Go for it. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, Raymond.
Curious, where'd y'all all watch the movie? I watched it on Amazon, so every once in a while it would show a little trivia bit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, ours is do
Yeah,
that.
we watch on Amazon.
Amazon, but you must have that on. Usually, if I like click down, it has like X-ray, and they'll tell you like the song and actors and stuff like that. But I don't know about the trivia.
I feel like you learned something that you're about to share with us.
I was going to, but I didn't want to be like that person where like all of us saw it, and then I was like, "Did you know?" And I was like,
Do
"Yeah,
it, tell
it's
us.
on Amazon too."
I didn't see it.
I didn't see what you're talking about.
Say it.
This can be a subsection to Cinema Club. It's Did You Know with Raymond Arturo Perez.
Well, see, the sad thing is, I built this up. I forgot I was going to mention it.
Okay, so wait, we were talking about the montages and how long they must have taken to shoot. And I said it must have taken like 2 days to shoot that montage with all the hair and makeup and
Just the Meryl Streep one, because that one's a simpler one, but the one walking down the street and all that
Yes.
is probably longer.
So it's not so much about the montage, but it was an interesting detail. Like as they're shooting all this stuff, that's going to take a while to do. Apparently, in shots that Emily Blunt wasn't even meant to be in, she wanted to make sure that she just showed how crazy, like neurotic, or not even neurotic, but just how intense the job requirements were for Emily. That she would. And I was trying to pay attention after I read it because it was towards the beginning of the movie. She would put herself in background, running in the background of scenes.
Oh wow!
So to add to the like chaos of this montage scene and making sure like things cut well. Also, like apparently Emily's like running through these scenes that she's not even having talking in.
Nice.
I wouldn't do that.
Oh, but also
By far. By the way, besides Meryl Streep, that was my favorite character.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah, she killed it.
She's dope. She does so great. I mean, they all do well. But I was gonna say too, just because you opened the conversation with this and the costume wardrobe, so I don't keep facts about who wins the Oscars because I'm really bad with stuff like that. But I was wondering, like, as I was watching it, like how are they doing anything with costume? And I did notice that at the beginning of the movie, she's only in like nude tones up until that montage scene that we're talking about where she's walking the street, that they switch her into mostly blacks and like more like browns and blues and like cool colors. But up until that point, she's only in like tans, beiges. So like sure, like it's contemporary and it's not like the usual, fantasy piece or the usual historical piece, but they are doing like a ton of stuff low key.
Didn't win the Oscar though. Got nominated.
Nominated.
Yeah, didn't win.
This is what I mean. I'm bad at this.
Yeah, no, but I think Naomi had said that it won.
I think won or nominated. I don't know. I just know there
It
was
was just nominated. Marie Antoinette won that year, which
Marie
That makes sense.
yeah.
Oh, man. So they just won ahead of the game.
Wait, what?
Yeah, what, JP?
I guess they just weren't ahead of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she was wearing neutral colors in the beginning.
Except for that chartreuse sweater.
Yeah, chartreuse. I thought it was just like baby blue.
Cerulean.
Oh, cerulean? What was it again?
That whole scene is important. Like how important
cerulean.
it is for you to recognize that there's millions of people's jobs that go about from this pile of stuff. So it's a very important scene for.
So where are all the other dresses? We have some right here, and then
And watch and listen.
and I think it can be very.
Yes, that one.
I feel like that scene is super important for like all the boyfriends who were dragged to this movie. Who's like, a movie about fashion, babe, again? And when they're watching it, they're like, oh snap, fashion is super important. Like a lot of people eat off of fashion.
But also like
eating thing too. Sorry, it's like fashion's like one of those things where it's just like people don't understand how much they like express themselves through what they wear.
True.
I mean, I'm obviously one to talk. But it's just like even GP, like that's how he shows off his interests. Is he chooses t-shirts with his favorite things on them. It's like everyone feels more comfortable in like some colors versus others, and people don't think about these things as much as they should.
Everybody, show what you're wearing. Show what you're wearing. Well,
Look at so I show off t-shirts.
Keeps cutting.
I show off my interest with my t-shirts too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Freddie! I'm wearing velvet pants. Well,
Nice.
I got the guns out. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
All right. Well, you're in Puerto Rico, so it makes sense.
It's hot, guys. It's hot. It's hot.
Yeah.
I didn't know they allowed guns on the island, baby.
Whoa!
so now that we had a mini fashion show,
Y'all
Oh,
welcome.
snap.
Woo, look
Still
at those
going for it.
Agreement with the wingtips, ladies.
bussin'. Anyways, there. Where was I? Where's my script? It's not like I read it or anything. Back to that scene you just brought up. He was like, "Stay quiet and listen." I've actually been there. I've been there where you just have to stay quiet and be on top of that. I probably would have already picked out the belt before that girl was like, panic mode, you know? So you have to be on top of your game when you're in the fashion industry, especially when it comes to the photographer not digging the look, or someone not ironing something right, or a stain on a t-shirt because that fool had deodorant or something. So that clip you just showed brought me back to a fashion shoot I just had. But enough about that. Was anyone interested in why Emily was wearing like all these crazy over-the-top clothes besides the other girls? Anybody?
I mean, I think that's kind of obvious. Like, some people, it's like the whole peacocking thing, where she's trying to show that, like, not only is she like on top of her brands, but she wears like the trendy stuff too. Because I mean, I'm totally an Emily, so so I understand.
I love it. I dig it. I was an Andy, and like I said, I was transformed. Thank you, gays. The gays at work were awesome. Anyways, so for the guys, the straight men, do you guys see the fashion world different differently? Anybody?
Yeah, after my first viewing, I totally got it. I went into this movie because there's a lot of great actors in it, and I was like, "Oh, let's see what it's about." And then but I wasn't like too keen on fashion at all, or even the understanding, that this movie presents. After seeing the movie, specifically the monologue that we referred to, I was like, man, like I had never even considered, the top down that fashion, incorporates, into everybody's day-to-day life. And, when she says like, because of the decisions we made in this room today, you unconsciously don't even realize that we picked that sweater out for you a year and a half ago, and you don't even know it. And I'm like, that's super dope. And that's the monologue. That's
that
the
you're
monologue
doing
that
on your next audition.
For sure. That's going into the repertoire. That's the monologue that gets you nominated, man. That's incredible. Because it's like informative, it's enlightening, and it's entertaining. That's what you know. But yeah, so that's a yeah to your question.
Again, I did costume construction and did like a bunch of different stuff like that for my theater class and costume history as well. So I've studied some of that for sure, and actually building dresses and all that. And people loved this movie. Like when I was in college, for sure people loved it. I don't know. My issue is more so with the characters. I just didn't like the characters because they're a bunch of assholes. So that was more of my issue, and body shaming in general. I don't know. I even brought that up. So anyway, so that's something else.
I have a whole thing about that. Like there's just like so much stuff. Like the fact that like just the fact that like the whole stereotype type of like the cold-hearted bitch boss is like such a big thing, and it's because like if this character had been a man, he'd be ambitious.
Oh well, she said that
Like,
anyway, which
no,
I
and like I have to say, it's like the thing that it's just like she's still perceived as a bitch, even though they straight up like were just like no, like she's just staying on the top. Like they literally said it in the movie, but she's still perceived that way, you know. And that's how womanly ambition is, and like that's also like my biggest crumb with the movie is like the final scene with her and the boyfriend, where like they just couldn't just let her be her own woman. Because, like, that's what happens in the book. Is, like, they actually just break it off. You know?
the movie kind of kept it open-ended, though.
No, like, that's why I'm saying that's, like, where the beef I have is, like, they had to, like, put a cherry on top of, like, this specific relationship so you could see that she had, like, a happily ever after thing.
No, but she kept a job in New York and didn't go to Boston.
But, like, that's what... But...
The fact that it's like even an option.
Did she?
You're saying the fact that they even met up, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, not only that, it's just like the fact that they had to make a point that he was moving away, and like they had to keep that open.
Right. No, for sure.
Like she either goes to Boston with him, or she keeps the job in New York. Either way, she'll be happy. Like they give her both options when she doesn't need both options.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And it's also a really interesting window into like the burnout culture that I think a lot of us have today too. Like I feel like during these like years, the early 2000s, this is how they showed a lot of business movies where it's just like, no, they're like working non-stop in order to succeed. So like kind of interesting to see how that imprinted upon us. So,
burnout culture, could you just elaborate just a little bit on that? What is that?
It's just like this whole idea of like having to work hard, like being so devoted to a job in order to succeed that you're willing to sacrifice like your health, like emotionally, mentally, like people's bodies break down. Like right now, like there's a whole bunch of like literature coming out about how this is such a big problem, especially for our generation. And it's just like you look at like all the things that we used to watch and stuff, and like how Andy's literally on call 24/7 for this lady. You know,
one of the first generations that once you have a cell phone and an email, you're reachable at all times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I think this is totally accurate. I've dated a couple of assistants in Hollywood, and it never stops.
Right,
but
that's the thing. Like that, we're that first kind of generation where cell phones were just on everyone all the time. So you can't just even like, oh, my landline was off the hook or whatever. Like they'll get you wherever you're at. And also, you know what I did like? The fact that when she met with her dad, the dad brought her money, and it's like, yeah, we are also the ones that get paid shit to, like it's either unpaid internship or it's a very low, you know, like, oh, you get paid, but not enough to survive in New York, right? I thought that was interesting that they actually had that kind of as a mention. Like,
could have been that started the job too.
Well, it could have been, but just well, no, she had been working there for a little bit by that point.
Hadn't been made over yet.
I thought she had, because that's when she also decided to stop eating bread, or was not gonna eat the bread rolls at the beginning.
Well, I mean, like they even say that they're only getting 15-minute long lunches. You know, and that's like standard for that company, you know?
I think it varies by state. I think the state of New York has different employee laws versus California's employee laws.
Well, it's just like it's kind of implied that it's like a company culture thing, not like a state law thing. Like where it's like, no, you're expected to just eat as quickly as you can and be back on the phones. You know, like she was afraid to go to the bathroom, for Christ's sake.
That's against the law here in California.
It is.
not in Amazon warehouse, apparently.
And also not if you're a salaried employee, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. I was just gonna say, like I get where you guys are coming from now in terms of, because I kept hearing you guys say it hasn't aged well. But the reason why I respond to it is because I feel it does capture truth. Like there's an honesty, even as Jason was saying, that he's dated people who have been assistants, and this is very indicative of what they're required to do. And is it right? Absolutely not.
Well,
But,
that's what I'm not saying that those are bad things. I'm just saying that this is like, it's just very interesting to see how far back this is ingrained in our culture.
For sure. Yeah,
That's
no,
the
I
thing,
agree.
right?
Yeah. Because for me as a writer and looking at it in I need a really good bad guy, and I need a really good guy, and then just all the elements to then like make this the hardest obstacle for the protagonist. I always go like, oh wow, like, and for me too, like watching it, because sometimes like I want to write a story and I want it to be about some of the simplest or most mundane or most like not super action heavy things, but then you got to find all the things that are like gonna make it actionable, gonna make it dramatic, gonna matter to someone who's watching in the TV or the movies. And like, and here they managed to do that with like the subtlest ways, or explaining like exposition without explaining it. The montages are one way that happens, or even the fact that like the film opens up and we're seeing this through Anne Hathaway's shoes of like, we don't know what the fashion world's like. We don't know the kind of like how deep everyone looks at Meryl Streep's character. I don't know. There's just a bunch of decisions that I go like, absolutely terrible. Also, relatable.
Like you'll never will hear me say this, but like the movie is better than the book.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like, because in the book it's very repetitive, because it's a lot of her being like, oh, my boss is awful, oh, I'm not getting it, and it's just over and over and over again. So like it's almost like this story was fitted to be a better film because like we get to cut to the crux of it.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Well, thanks for that. I didn't know about stuff. Yeah, Dino, go ahead.
Well, a couple things. I guess sidebar or whatever. It's interesting or watching movies now that reference people that have now kind of been, canceled, if you will, right? There was Charlie Rose, J.K. Rowling kind of as well. Like a lot of movies that we watch, especially from like early 2000s or whatever, it's always just like, they are no longer part of the conversation. For me, the aging, the not aging well, there's two things. One, it's like, she didn't even want to be in fashion thing. That's why I thought this movie could have ended in like the first 5 minutes. Because she wasn't part of that world. She didn't care. She didn't want to be it. That's my biggest gripe. I understand being tortured and being in situations where you're just like, I need to get through this. Kind of like Emily Blunt's character. She's like, that's literally what she wants to do, right? So she's got to be the peacock. She's got to be there, always on top, no matter what. But like, she didn't want to be in that world. So that was my biggest like gripe, if you will, of just like, you're not truly following your dream. But my question now, throwing it back, I guess, because straight men were asked the question. For the ladies, and whoever else wants to talk about this, would you show your kid this? Would you show a girl? Like, there's so much like, oh, the 6 is now 14, and it's like a lot of that kind of body shaming. Which also, again, when you have an actor, when all these actresses are beautiful, right? They're all in great shape. I would be surprised if Emily and who's the main actress?
Anne?
Yeah, and Anne, if they're not pretty much the same size, right? Or at least to me, they seem like the same size. But anyway, like, that's my issue. Like, is this I like, you know, like, do we want to? Is this good to show? Like, I mean, it's showing the how reality is, how the world is, right? That no matter what, you're going to be looked at as a size, you know. So
Oh yeah, no, like that's also like one of my biggest gripes because like they're talking like I'm a size 10. Beyonce is a size 8. Okay, first of all, Beyonce is a size 8. So if your line can't fit Beyonce, then what the fuck you doing? But thank you. No, but like it's true, and like as an actress, like that's something I'm always hyper conscious about, you know, because like I don't think I'm an unattractive person, but you know that is something that I'm always like worried if they're concentrating a little bit more on my hips instead of my actual skills, and it's just unfortunately we have a lot of work when it comes to this, and a lot of work is being done. You know, like we have shows like Shrill, and we're seeing a lot more content being focused on like quote unquote normal people. But at the end of the day, Hollywood is about the fantasy of it. And like that's why Anne Hathaway was like, I think she was really popular in the, because like she was pretty enough for you to be like intrigued by her, but you could like dress her down just enough for you to be like, yeah, she's just like me.
I mean, how many
Interesting.
Part of the fantasy.
she's done so many movies where there's a makeover
Oh
like,
yeah, no, like
thing embedded to the story.
they
So
just
she's
like
like ordinary Anne, and then
like
she's
puppy
like
girl.
super star Anne.
I think this would be an apropos time to bring up that Anne Hathaway was not the first choice for this film. She wasn't even the second or third choice. According to Miss Anne Hathaway, she was actually the 9th choice for this movie. Through a series of other actors like dropping out or not wanting it or scheduling conflicts, she eventually just got the role. And some of the people who auditioned for the movie, and they keep it kind of secret to this day because this was kind of a career-defining movie working next to Meryl Streep. They don't talk about all the people who did audition for it, so it's kind of hush-hush. But some of the auditions I thought were kind of weird, like Juliette Lewis auditioned for this. And somebody else, like, kind of like who you wouldn't think either, I forget. But initially, the director offered the role to Rachel McAdams because coming off of Mean Girls, you know what I mean? Like 2 years before this. And she was super hot stuff, and it made sense for her to like to be in another Mean Girl situation. She turned it down because she said she never felt like she wanted to do movies just to do movies. So she either didn't do anything or she did something else. But she's like, I don't want to do this.
Mm. Well, I mean, to be fair, like when the novel came out, it was kind of like it was first of all, Devil Wears Prada is a debut novel, which means that no one knows like the writer stuff, and a lot of people kind of pushed it off as like a beach read. So I'm assuming they have a part of that.
Beach read. I don't know. What's a beach read?
Oh, it's kind of just like a fluffy, like over the top, dramatic.
Yeah.
Like, blaze through in like an afternoon.
Sure.
Regarding Dino's corner earlier, about like the people that have been canceled in this film, I think what's also unique because time has passed and some of the people that did watch this movie when it came out have grown up with the film, and in the same way we're talking about like differences having watched it the first time and the second time today, is the one of the things that's popped up recently in kind of the zeitgeist is the boyfriend character being like it's one of those memes where it's like the movie villain, in this case Meryl Streep, and then the actual villain, and it's like the boyfriend. And so that was another thing that I was like keeping an eye out of, like, is this actually true, or are we just like latching onto this? And I can kind of see where he is the actual villain, but I will say like Steve was saying about, you know, I've gone through some things and experienced some relationships. It's like, nah, the communication between them in this relationship was terrible. And like, sure, there are ways where the boyfriend absolutely made this worse, but like y'all needed to talk things out of your expectations and boundaries for each other before like jumping to the gun, because that was terrible.
Yo, I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard when she came into like whatever the diner or whatever, and he just flexes like, "Oh yeah, I got the job." Like he just like,
the sous chef job at the end.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so like,
I completely agree with you, Raymond, 100%. But also, you got to consider that all these people are in their early 20s, and they're just figuring it out. You know what I mean? They're figuring out how to live together and live amongst each other and communicate. And they are not doing a great job. I agree, though.
it was crazy though, because like for me, my biggest gripe with the movie was the boyfriend and the friends, because like we brought up Mean Girls, and I was waiting for that Mean Girls moment where Anne Hathaway does become like Emily Blunt's character, but that never really happened, except wardrobe wise. Like I don't think the character herself changed at all. So I thought that sudden hate towards her was really uncalled for.
I agree. I think the friends were dickheads.
The friend was definitely a dickhead. Yeah, especially after the kid. Like it was almost like we need the switch. So when what's his face kisses her on the cheek, it's like they just jumped on her, and I was like, really? That's why? I'd be more upset at you not showing up to our things, but like she showed up.
What about when they snatched her phone and started tossing it around the counter?
There's no actual front group where that would be realistic.
No, like my
I also wonder. I wonder if our etiquette and expectations of our friends have changed since this movie came out.
Well, since most of us are also in a business where that's...
If you're in your early 20s, like, everyone's very hyper aware of what they're trying to do in life. To the point, because, like, I remember when I was, like, 23, all I could fucking talk about was, like, trying to get an agent. Like, I feel so bad for my coworkers.
When I was 23, most of my friends was getting high, so I can't relate.
When I was 23, I was still in Alabama, so you know.
It's just like I feel like, and like a lot of them were like movers and shakers in the city too.
No, that's
they
what I
would
was thinking too.
understand.
Like they would be more empathetic towards her cause, because like not only are you hustling in New York, but they're all artists themselves. She's the girl is a photographer, and the boyfriend is a chef trying to make it big. It's like,
imagine if the boyfriend's boss was calling. And it was his chef boss saying, "I need you to pick up a shift at another thing," and everybody started throwing his phone around. Are you kidding me?
So okay, so again, it kind of goes to the issue of like her not wanting that actual job, and her just constantly saying, "I didn't have a choice," and that's I think might be one of my favorite Meryl Streep moments when she's like, "Oh no, you had a choice." Like that, you know, the final kind of talk they have in the car in Paris, when it's like, well, I didn't have a choice. It's not my fault. And Meryl's like, you totally had a choice. No one put a gun to your head. So that was my issue with Anne Hathaway's character of like, don't just blame it like you didn't have a choice. Like we all have choices.
She was like, rent is due. I'm going to
But
pay.
like, isn't that part of being young? Like, isn't that part of being like an early 20 something? Is like when you get your first job, you're just like, oh no, like I need this to pay rent, and you're so scared of doing anything wrong. And then like
it's also like,
you know,
it's supposed to be a tragic structure where the like character's hubris is being tried, and then she finds out, oh fuck, the thing that I despise about Meryl Streep, I've already enacted on my own accord. And the second thing is like, when I was 23, like most of us were working some terrible assistant jobs, very similar to this, but in different departments, either production or development or at the talent agencies or management companies. And we were all hating it. And it was terrible pay, and it was long hours, and we didn't want to be there. And a lot of us were doing things that we thought were either unnecessary, some illegal, some unethical, immoral. And yet we were like, well, what else do we, like, we still got to pay rent, and we're trying to move forward in our careers, and this is the only options available to us.
Sounds like all the extra work I had to do.
yeah, and so like, and that's like part of growing up is like realizing, wait, I don't owe anybody anything.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
like
my thing is just like it wasn't even in what we wanted to do. That's my biggest thing, right? Like, but anyway.
I felt that when she went to Stanley Tucci's character. That was my moment for that. Is like because Stanley Tucci said the same thing. It's like there's girls who are willing to die for this job, but it's not you. Like, you could quit, but she wanted to prove him wrong.
yeah.
So that's just.
Woo! That's great.
Also, that was my favorite cinematography choice. Every time they decided to cut to Stanley Tucci's character.
I mean, honestly, I don't think this movie would be nearly as like good as it is without Stanley Tucci's character. He's what brought the warmth.
He's in two minutes.
Oh, yeah, he's great. Did he receive any nominations for this? Because I know
Probably not.
Meryl Streep and Emily Blunt cleaned it up.
Emily Blunt got nominated?
Oh yeah.
I bet Stanley Tucci was like in that one scene where they're about to announce the new partner to the new company. It's like right when he's about to get his nomination, and it's like, no, it's the other guy.
See, that's who I was rooting for, right?
Again, as a mop.
He should have been in the diner at the end. It should have been him and Annie, just like, I got this job. Gonna be a sous chef. And that's Stanley Tucci. I'm gonna go visit the Italy and do a job for CNN and check out the Italian food.
See,
Poor
he deserved
Tucci.
the happy ending, not fucking Boston sushi.
Boston Sushi. He got a job at the Oak Room. Was it the Oak Room?
Yeah, is that a room or is it like the Cedar Room? But they change it ever so slightly. Like,
And then it turns out it's mahogany.
Oh man,
Well, everyone, final thoughts on. Well, we're done wrapping it up. I feel like I communicated everything I wanted to share with y'all. But final thoughts on this movie, you guys.
I guess I'll go ahead and start because I've been talking so much. Honestly, like there's a reason why this has got such a big presence in pop culture. I do think that there are certain aspects that are problematic nowadays that like if you did have to watch it with like your teenager, you'd have to sit down and be like, well, this is not how healthy people do anything. But it's probably one of the few portrayals of like women of the time like trying to be ambitious, and like it's one of the few films that like the love story is actually like a B or like a C plot, and at the end of the day, I think that there are some things that are like really important in this film.
Gotcha. It was fun. I like the cattiness. It's cool, but you would probably get a much better time watching Mean Girls. So yeah, that's my final thought.
Jason.
Okay. I would say that if I were watching this movie with a minor or with my kid or something, I would have a lot less explaining to do than if I watched Havoc with them. So
Young and bored.
Let's start there. No, I think, yeah. I feel like with most movies with kids, you do need to communicate some things with them. You should always have a talk back with a minor after watching almost anything, really, because it's a movie. You know what I mean? And movies are really informative and really,
I thought it was like the movie ends and you take your foldable chair in front of TV. It was like, okay, thanks for coming. We're gonna
I'm gonna start to talk back. That's what I'm gonna do with my kids for sure. Like they gotta learn. I think I don't mind to reference what Michaela said about the love interest being the C story or whatever. I'm cool with that. I mean, there's so many movies where like there's a male lead and the love interest is like the D or E story. I mean, you look at like Bullet with Steve McQueen, And no one even cares that he's a lonely man at the end of the movie. You know what I mean? He's just this
But
lonely
those
dude that has no
characters
girlfriend after like saving San Francisco. I think though, I think this movie stands up for the most part. I mean, there are a few things that change, but this movie also is indicative of its time too, though. And we got to remember, this thing was 15 years ago. They're coming up on their 20th anniversary real soon. That's crazy to me. Fantastic acting across the board. Like I said, it's just, I think everybody's great in this. I think even Giselle is really, holds up in this thing.
Yes, Giselle.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's great. There's lots of cameos. Valentino and
Right.
Oh, well, that's another fun fact. Of the 15, I think, fashion designers that they asked to be in the film, Valentino was the only one who said yes.
oh wow. I'm sure they probably asked like Karl Lagerfeld and all those cats, and they're like, I don't want to be involved with Anne Hathaway. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what they said. Yeah, but great movie. Like, it's a real feather in Meryl Streep's career. This film.
Yeah.
I mean, she's so naturally, seamlessly good in this thing. Like, just like it's not even acting. She just is. It's so incredible. It's such a good performance. You don't even think it's a performance. She's so good. They could just be her. So I'm really jealous of that. Those are my final thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my whole thing hasn't aged though. It's more of a joke or anything. But the way I make this work is this is in the Devil universe, and the Devil universe is this and the Devil's Advocate. So in my mind, then Meryl Streep and Al Pacino are hanging out, and then you have Anne having to meet up with Keanu, and like try to beat the world. So that's how I make it work. It's part of that universe. Yeah. Final thoughts.
Is the Devil's Reject also in the universe?
Yes. Cool. Only if they wear Prada.
Yeah.
What about Nada?
Wear Prada? Was that a thing? Did that? I mean, I hope they were. Was she wearing Prada? Like, do we know?
The first bag you see is Prada.
Well, thank you.
Duh, Dino.
It says it on the thing. If you pop,
Yeah.
it has the emblem.
No one's gonna look at the buckle. I'm not gonna pause
Not
for
a buckle. It's a boss leather.
Yeah. So anyway.
Oh my god. Was there even Prada in this thing? Yeah, the very first thing.
all leather looks the same to me.
And here's also a fun fact: Anna Wintour.
I think
did
Dino
wear
what
this, and she
I
was
think-
wearing Prada.
Oh, that's
I think-
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think Dino was waiting for Prada to be like a Supreme sign and be like,
No, see,
Talk
they ain't
about a
Gucci.
Prada placement,
They
right?
ain't Gucci. They don't wear like that.
Clap for
Thank,
Dino.
thank you. I knew that one would hit with JP. Most of my jokes here, I'm like, JP is my audience. That's what I'm going for. Yeah, I mean, it has such a 2000 feel. Like just seeing the world around what was in 2000. I was even saying one of the signs that I saw was 1 hour photos. Like just. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I remember those places. I remember taking my disposable camera and or taking the film rolls. So I think it's a great film for the time period to look back at, and just such a stellar cast, such great acting. I will say that. I just wasn't, again, it was just like, why are you there? You don't want to be there. Go live your dream. That was get out of there. I kept yelling at the TV, like, slap her, walk away, just leave. You don't want. Oh, I know what it was when I was like, wait. You see, for me, there's so many moments that were like drop the mic moments. Kind of like when she brings the Harry Potter book, right? Or like she printed it out. And she's like, actually, I made 2 copies, and your twins are already reading it. boom, I'm out. Peace. Like that. I mean, like that. That's the empowerment I was looking for. But yeah, the movie's great. It's fine. It's gonna live on forever, in eternity.
My final thoughts are that I've learned Dino has a lot of integrity that Anne Hathaway's character definitely does not have. Also, in regards to the movie, I agree with what everyone else is saying about the acting in this film is super dope, and also I think the director should get kudos too. I do think that this film is able to make what in a bad writer's hand would be mundane and not so cinematic. So I also applaud that. And also just a couple of things that I noted was I'm not sure if it's Julia Michaels who sings like music and writes lyrics, but I think she was the music supervisor for this movie. And then secondly was on a fun fact of a last viewing, I think I could be wrong, but I think Chanel allowed most of their collection to be worn solely by Anne Hathaway.
Oh wow.
I could be wrong.
That's probably true. I feel like it. She's worn a lot of Chanel in this thing.
A ton of Chanel.
Yeah. Steve, final thoughts. Steve.
Oh, since you brought kudos to the director, then I guess next movie should just be Marley and Me because she directed that as well. So
I'm ready to cry. I've actually never watched it all the way through.
I've never seen it.
Why are you guys talking to my final thought?
Well, because you weren't in on time. You didn't get us any coffees. You were just like, we expect to when we call you, you're there, and you weren't. So
hey, I was trying to have a moment of suspense. You know what I'm saying, for my entrance, because darling, everyone wants to be us, darling.
Speaking of the delay, sorry, just final thing. It's like we didn't even mention Emily Blunt being just like pummeled by a car, right? Are we like?
Yo, that was the most delightful getting hit by a car scene that I ever seen in my life. Like, I didn't feel bad.
What? I felt horrible. As someone who's been hit by a car multiple times,
I felt horrible.
I mean,
but also, what about
worse of a teenager being hit by a bus?
What about Regina George being hit by a bus?
I literally just
what's that? Is that Mean Girls? Okay.
Mean Girls.
I've only seen that once, and it was probably back in 2005.
Maybe that's why she didn't want to be in this movie, because there was another bus scene.
What are those? Those are taxis. What did taxis do? What Uber did? Oh.
They're like, all right, so there's this scene where you're going to get hit by a bus. I don't want to be the girl that just get hit by buses.
If Joaquin Phoenix and Will Ferrell can take it, anyone can.
But this time it's different because it's in New York.
Steve, this is your longest final thought you've ever
I know,
had.
Steve.
Oh, it's my final thought? Well, you guys are talking, so, I just follow along. But my final thought is, this movie sucks. Go watch Mean Girls. No, I'm kidding. It's a great film, especially if you're gonna study Meryl Streep.
You study her script? What? What movie did you watch? You definitely did watch The Devil Wears Prada.
I watched The Devil Cooks Prada. It was a sideshow from Anthony Bourdain with a wig. Anywho, this movie is great. I think Meryl Streep has the best scene stealers. My favorite one was when she's in the car and she literally, with just her facial expressions, she tells so much. And then she tells the guy, go drive. Like that scene. That scene to me made the whole movie.
So good.
It's great. It's great. I'm like, yo, this is what you should study if you want to become an actor. Like, you gotta study this, Because if
Gotta
you can
study
master
Meryl
that,
Streep in The Devil Wears Prada and not The Devil Bears Nada.
There. I'm gonna jump in here again. Sorry, guys.
Dino's second final thought. Go.
So I worked at Starbucks, and I had big issues in in general, how coffee is handled in movies with weight distribution and all that. But also, she brought in those cups of coffee that were spilling over, that were all dirty, and Emily didn't say shit. I know you're not just about to take that to Meryl Streep in just like the nastiest freaking Starbucks cup. I know that's not good enough. That irked me because multiple times I was like, "Here's your coffee," and it's all spilling. There's no way she would have allowed that. Meryl would have slapped that out of her hand and be like, "Lick it up, you dirty dog. Now go get me another coffee."
Okay, agreed. But can I just celebrate a moment where I do think they went off script for a second?
Okay,
And it's
yeah.
when Emily Blunt is telling her like, this is the book, you're not like in charge of it yet. And Anne Hathaway, and I'm assuming in character, got excited and touched the book, and then it looks like an ad lib, or feels like an ad lib as a writer, or the way they did it. And if it's acting, then God bless them. Like, wow, that felt so real and true in the moment. But Emily snatches it back and goes like, "No, you're not allowed to touch that," and then goes into like what I assume is the rest of the dialogue. But it's just like so good.
She has a line there, Raymond, where she says something like, I forget what Anne Hathaway says to her, but she replies with the line that she giggles about that I believe is clearly an improv, where she goes, "Of what?" She goes, "Well, where do you have to be? A bad skirt convention or a grandma skirt convention?" And it's like that's an improv for sure.
I'm here for it. I love them. I could watch them.
Well, guys, I guess my final thought is that this is a good feel movie for women in all platforms and men who are also in the industry, fashion industry.
I think most of them were
movie to see the development of a character. The long shots that were shot here were amazing in my point of view. Yeah, everyone, thanks for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate what you guys had to say. I learned a few facts that I didn't know before, and I recommend this movie to those who haven't seen it yet. Back to you.
Hey, Steve.
what?
What do you have for us next week?
Next week, it was supposed to be my turn, but because I am literally within hours of me hopping on a plane, there could be a very slight possibility, just slight, that I might not be here next week. So I decided I'm gonna skip myself and I'm gonna let JP go.
Oh boy. Come back next week when we watch The Devil Wears Not.
I was waiting for it.
We're gonna watch the French Iranian animated film Persepolis.
Nice.
Ooh.
Been waiting for this one. Been waiting for this one.
I act like we're not gonna talk about this. Oh, you can't even see my face. I was writing it down.
This movie takes place in Paris as well. Looking forward to it.
There you go. If you want to see the French version of Paris is Burning, it's going to be Persepolis next week. For Raymond Arturo Perez, Naomi YG, Michaela, and JP, El Dondino, Jason Echoes, and me, Steve. We'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hey, I'm Jason Echoes, and thank you for watching the Oye Dimelo Network. There's some videos here. Watch one of them, and then you can subscribe to the network, and you can see more good stuff.
Sure.